Welcome to the UIAAA Connection podcast. We thank GoFan and VNN, the exclusive sponsors of the UIAAA Connection. Now operating as one combined company, GoFan and VNN offer a seamless experience through digital ticketing and athletic websites. They make it easy to direct fans to one central place for schedules, communication, and tickets for both home and away events. We appreciate GoFan and VNN for their continued support and exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection podcast.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch Hunter. Today we have as our special guest, Tabitha Beard, Certified Master Athletic Administrator, the Co-Activities Director of the Oxford School District. Welcome to the podcast, Tabitha.
Thank you for having me.
Let's have you begin by sharing with our audience where you grew up, where you went to college, your first job, etc.
I grew up in a small town called Columbus, Mississippi. It is, if you're geographically, I'm equidistant from, my house was equidistant from the University of Alabama and Mississippi State University. So growing up, you usually have to choose a side. And I always tell the story that my neighbor across the road was an offensive lineman in Alabama, so he took me to all the Alabama games. So I grew up as a huge Alabama fan growing up. I went to college at Delta State University for a whole semester, figured out that was not for me, and came back home and graduated from Mississippi University for Women, that is in Columbus, and so graduated, got my undergrad and my master's there. So my first jobs, I babysat a lot growing up, and then first job was at Winn-Dixie. I was a cashier and a bag girl, and then got into education from there. Right out of college, took my first job at my alma mater. I taught at New Hope High School, which is where I graduated for about 13 years before I moved on out of there. So yeah, so graduated, then went back and taught there.
All right, that's awesome. So let me ask a follow-up regarding your allegiance to Alabama. Is that still the same, or has it changed to Ole Miss? The reason I ask that is, and you probably don't know this, but my son-in-law is a coach here in Utah. Just got the job at Weber State, but he coached at Corner Canyon. One of his quarterbacks is Jackson Dart, who just graduated from Ole Miss and went on to play for the Giants. So I'm wondering if you're a Jackson Dart fan, I guess is the question.
I'm a huge Ole Miss fan. I will say that I do still love my Crimson Tide, but it is very, very hard to live in Oxford, Mississippi and not be completely endeared to Ole Miss. My husband laughs because he grew up Ole Miss 100%. When we first got married, there were big rivalry days when Ole Miss and Alabama played. But now that we live here, I go to every Ole Miss game, followed their softball team to the College World Series, like just being in this town with that college and the influence that it has and what they do. And it just kind of is in your culture. So yes, huge Jackson Dart fan. He's a great guy. I met him a few times, being the AD here at the high school. He's done camps here and other things. So I've got to meet him a few times. He's a great guy. And, just being ingrained in that, I have become very endeared to Ole Miss. So that they laugh. They say that they've completely converted me, but they haven't quite completely converted me. So.
Okay. Let me ask you this did you have an opportunity as a young woman to participate in youth sports and then along in high school?
No doubt. I played softball from the time I was old enough to hold a bat and ball. Back then it was slow pitch more than anything, but I traveled all over, the South playing slow pitch softball. I think Oklahoma is about the only state that still has it on a high school level, but God, I loved slow pitch softball. It was wonderful. And then I played basketball, got to do AAU basketball, all of that growing up. And then also in high school, I threw the shot put for track and, didn't run. I was never a runner. I was always slow, very slow, but loved basketball, loved softball, enjoyed my time at track. I also danced a little. I know you wouldn't think that seeing me, but, did all of that growing up as well. So very diverse background in that. But, yep, I grew up, played it all through high school. had an opportunity to play in college and decided that first semester that was not for me. We did not get fast pitch softball in high school until my senior year. And when I tell you the difference, I love the game now and I love coaching the game, but the learning curve as a high school senior when you've literally played slow pitch softball your whole life, and you
Right.
go, I made the joke. I go from having the highest batting average to I got in trouble several games for throwing my body in front of the ball just so I could get on base because I was not hitting the ball very well. So, just those transitions into that, and as I grew and got to watch the game and coach the game and be around great coaches, I fell in love with the sport of fast pitch. But playing it, it was not for me. It was not there. So, didn't play in college.
Understandable.
So, yeah.
Well, people don't understand in the women's game. I mean, it's tough enough to hit the ball from 46 feet in the men's game. The women's mound is only 40 feet, and that extra 6 feet makes a difference. I know having officiated years and years ago in fast pitch, but great story. Let's have you talk for a minute about the mentors and leaders you've had in your life that have made a difference to you.
Yeah, when I read this question, there are two that popped out to me, and one of them was my high school softball coach, Coach Shepard. She was, you know, when I think of just servant leadership and a quiet but powerful presence from day one. She taught me, how to love a game. She taught me the things that were important and that if you treat the game right, it'll treat you right. You have to practice. You have to put in work. Again, she was not. She was about as tiny and as meek as she could be. Probably had never picked up a batter ball, but she started the program at my high school, and I was actually only the second coach ever there. I took over from her when she retired. She coached me. I have an older sister and a younger sister. She coached all of us. So, that legacy. And she also helped me develop my love of math. I was a math teacher and student taught under her and had her growing up. And, she taught me that math was fun and it could be fun and that everybody, could learn and that she was so big on diversifying lessons and really meeting kids where they were at the time and seeing that in action and getting to learn from that was huge for me. My second one is my current superintendent, Bradley Robertson. I've told this story several times, but he was the principal when I was hired at Oxford. Never in a million years thought I would end up at Oxford. But I meet him and I'm hired, and his motto in life is to love your people. That's what he lives by, and he lives by that every day of his life. And seeing that and getting to learn from that, and he saw something in me that I'd never thought of, being an AD and being, a leader. My goal in life was to teach math and coach softball. That's what I wanted to do. That's all I wanted to do. And he really set me down and was like, I really think that, you know, we need strong females in leadership positions in athletics. We need this, on a state level on and I think you would be perfect for that. So, he kind of gave me that push. And even today, if there's anything I need, I know that he's one of the first people I can call. He is my biggest cheerleader and one of my biggest supporters. And also, if there's ever an idea or something that I get stuck on and need help with, he's the first person I call.
Good. Let me ask you a little bit of a personal question here, Tabitha. What's your biggest failure or disappointment in life? And more importantly, what did you learn from it?
Uh, this one it's an easy one to answer, but a very hard one as well. My third year of teaching, I lost a student. He was, I'm going to call him JT. That's all I've ever called him. But JT took his own life, and I taught him my second year, and he was probably one of the smartest human beings I'd ever met in my life. And it took me a while to figure that out because he was that kid that cut up in class. He would hide under my desk just so I would have to look for him. But what I really found out later is that he was bored stiff. The kid was so smart, but he just didn't show it. And he did not have a support system at home that backed that up and helped that. And I sat down one day and I was doing some work for something. I was helping a kid. I was tutoring a college calculus kid, and JT had gotten in trouble again, and he had after school detention, and he was hanging out with me. And he saw that book that I was working in. I was working on problems because I had to tutor her later that day. And he just kind of looked at a problem and said an answer. And I said, what? And we started looking, and he literally could answer every question. And he kind of stayed over and helped me with that tutoring session and explain. I mean, we were both blown away. So from that day forward, I gave JT calculus problems while we were doing pre-algebra, and he do them brilliantly, and he was wonderful. And I tried to talk to some of his other teachers. I don't know that I did the best job of that. Really trying to help, because he was that troubled kid. And I always feel like in life I didn't do enough for him, and that is my biggest disappointment is, when I got the news that, he had taken his own life. There was a lot of things at home, but I kind of felt like I dropped the ball in that and not following up. And it led me to get my master's. My master's is in gifted studies. I kind of wanted to learn more and figure out how to help the JTs of the world moving forward, and how to recognize that sooner and be a bigger advocate for them. But more than anything, I think what that taught me is that relationships matter. And, you don't always know the impact that you have on a kid's life, but we do. I mean, every single day, whether it's in a classroom by giving them a calculus problem, or following up to see how their day's going, all of that. Led, woo, gonna get emotional, but I haven't talked about him in a long time, but this question brought it out. Like that has always been what I've said, and what I've kind of driven on moving forward, especially with kids, is that those relationships matter, and checking on people matter, and making sure that you are doing everything in your power to reach them, and especially when you feel like they're not reachable. So yeah.
That is well said. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's talk for a minute about the job of athletic administrator and talk about how it's changed or how it's the same since you first began years ago.
Well, I think, and I thought about this one a good bit too when I read it, and I thought about that first couple years, and I'm the human being that my motto is just get to work. I mean, there's a job to do, you get to work and you grind through it and you get through it. But and I think the job of the AD is, I mean, I can tell you all the things. We all know that we have to clean the toilets, and we have to, all the things you don't know that you had to do that you have to do. You become the janitor, you become the cook, you become the field crew, you become so many things to so many people. You schedule the games, you make sure the games are set up. But I think one thing that's changed more than anything, especially since COVID, and that's when it kind of goes back, is there's a huge communication discrepancy from when I started and where we are now. And I think, and I say discrepancy in a sense of like social media, how we communicate, like having face-to-face conversations. I've made it my personal goal, and I say it in every single parent meeting we have in a season, is that we have to learn how to look somebody in the eyes and have conversations again. And I think that's how it's changed more than anything. They would rather shoot you a text message or an email or than have a conversation. So bringing back that personal element of the job, I think, and communicating face to face, that is especially with younger people, and modeling that for them, looking them in the face and how is your day going, and make them answer you face to face, and especially with young coaches that grew up in that COVID era and all of that, really coaching your coaches into being effective communicators. Those are things that we didn't have to do in the beginning. I mean, we talk to people, and now it's so easy to get behind a screen. And I think trying to reverse that a little bit is how it's changed, and and kind of where you're at with that, and what it's kind of evolved to. But also
Well
as an AD,
said.
to adapt, you got to adapt to it
Yeah,
because it's going away. So I want it to go away, but it's not going away.
absolutely. Let me ask you this. Talk about your journey now with the MAAA, if I said that correctly, and the NIAAA, how you got involved, etc.
Uh, Celeste Bramlett. That's how I got involved. One thing I want to know. I'm that person that wants to learn, and I want to be involved. And I went to all the clinics, and it evolved into me speaking at some of the MAAA clinics, and on different topics. And Celeste and I became really good friends, and it was one of those things to where, hey, I think you need to be a state coordinator as well. And I was like, what does that even mean, Celeste? She was like, you got to get involved in the NIAAA. You want to serve, you want to be a part of things. I got on board of the MAAA with planning and all of that, helping with planning our conference and different things like that. But Celeste really, I say she drug me kicking and screaming a lot, but she did not, it wasn't that bad. She was like, you really need to get involved. And I think that you would really enjoy this. And so she made me go to a coordinator summit with her. She was like, I dubbed the state testing coordinator for the state of Mississippi. And I was like, oh, you do, huh? So we show up to get, and I walk in, and the first thing they do was separate. So it's like, oh, sweet baby, I didn't know anybody. So thank God, some great people that I ended up at the table with. That's what I said. I said they just kind of reached out and they saw that look on my face, like, what in the world am I doing here? And they brought me in. So that's kind of how that started. Just getting to know people and making some connections, because that was my biggest thing. Is I needed connections. I needed a place and to build a network of people that when I needed help, I could go to them. I didn't really know people, and Celeste helped me with that. And being a part of the MAAA and NIAAA, that's where it all started, was helping me build those connections and getting to know people and being a part of something and just service.
Let me ask you a follow-up then. Now, if I'm correct, you're the you're not the secretary. You're spending a year as training as the secretary of the NIAAA. I know how that works. Then you have 5 years as the secretary. So, how did you decide to throw your hat in the ring? You Celeste again, or well, obviously some people nationally got a hold of you. Talk about that for a minute.
Well, I started, I joined a cohort, and, I really saw the impact. Celeste kind of pushed me in, and I started, and she got me introduced. But as I went on, I really started looking, I started taking courses. Really enjoyed those. I got in a cohort, the executive leadership cohort. And in that, it just kind of became, what is a way to serve? How do I serve and give back to this group of people? Because I'm telling you, there I have made some friendships and some connections through the NIAAA that I never thought was possible. I know right now, a handful of states, if I'm ever there, I know exactly who to call. I have a place to stay, I have somewhere to eat, I have somewhere to go. I mean, that's just the connections that you kind of build when you become a part of this and when you really jump in. And that's my personality again. I jump into something feet first. So getting to know these people and, really looking at what the NIAAA's mission is and what it's about and what it's doing for ADs across the country and what it's giving to us. I really wanted to serve and to give back to that. So Celeste got me in, but I don't really know that, because I told her that I was running, when I started talking about it, and she was like, Tabitha, I think you'll be great. I think you should really do it. So she encouraged me and helped me every step of the way, from writing speeches to listening to my speech 500 times and really being a sounding board to me. So I think the biggest thought was I just wanted to serve. I mean, to figure out a way to kind of give back to an organization that had helped me so much.
Perfect. So let me ask you this question. I say it this way because these are the only two ADs I know from Mississippi, but talk about, at least in my mind, working with Mississippi legends. You've already talked a little bit about Celeste, but the other one that I know is Lonnie Tillman, former board member. So talk about the benefit of having those two great leaders in your state and what they've meant to you.
I mean, more than anything, I know that on any given day, that if I need something, that I can call Lonnie Tillman and he'll answer the phone and he will do his dead level best. I think about the Celeste Bramletts and the Lonnie Tillmans and the Tim Schramicks and those people that are running our organization. And what I think about more than anything is servant leadership. They are truly boots on the ground, and watching Lonnie serve others so well. Does that make sense? Like watching him
Hmm.
and the way that he truly gives selflessly of himself. I mean, his desire to grow, his desire to get better. And I know with Lonnie too, all I have to do is bribe him with strawberry cake and I can have whatever I want. We laugh. But I've talked to him about 4 times in the past week, and every single time it was promise of a strawberry cake. So but all jokes aside about that, Lonnie is just I mean, he truly embodies selfless leadership and serving others and servant leadership. And that's, those are the kind of people that I want to learn from every day. Those are the kind of people that run our association and, it has helped us grow to the point to where, we know that there's always someone we can call if we need help. There's always, a sounding board if we need something. And that's big, especially for younger ADs, and for them to put themselves out there like that and be that for other people.
Perfect. Now, let me ask you a question about the recent conference in Tampa. I want you to share your observations, but more specifically, was it a little bit nerve-wracking? Because I ran for the at-large years and years ago, like maybe 28, 29 years ago, and lost. But see, you're running for secretary against two other people from different parts of the U.S. Were you able to enjoy the conference, or were you just split in so many directions? Just talk about that for our audience.
I will say that this was probably the most nerve-wracking conference, um, because of that, because it was the anticipation of, because, in the secretary position, you can't campaign, you can't do all the things that at-large candidates do. So that is one good thing about it. But you also don't do anything until the delegate assembly. So, and
Mm-hmm.
it's at the very end of the conference. So it's literally like the whole week of you're just on pins and needles. Like, have I read this enough? Am I ready for my speech? I think just and not being able to really talk and share that with a lot of people. I mean, it was that's what I said. I said, I'm going to, if I have any power whatsoever, which I do not, I said, we're going to move that delegate assembly to the first of the conference. So whoever's running for this position, I mean, it was just a extremely nerve-wracking week. And it was always in my mind. It was always
Mm-hmm.
in, you know, should I be doing this? Am I ready? Just that over and over. And, it's just the nerves of it. I mean, but I knew, I mean, and I say that there was also a sense of peace. It was a sense of, you know, the other two people that were running were both great candidates as well. So no matter, I wanted to win because, if I'm playing tiddlywinks, I want to win. But I mean, at the end of the
Yeah.
day, the NIAAA is going to be in good hands regardless, if it's Tanya or, whoever it was going to be, they were all in good hands. So it was going to all work out the way it was supposed to work out.
And what did you think about, because obviously in 2020 was COVID, we weren't able to go to Tampa. Did you like Tampa as a site? Because I found it a lot more enjoyable than the Orlando conference, only because and the Orlando conference is great, but when you're in that World Center, you're like stuck there and you're on an island, but you can just walk across the street to different restaurants, and actually the convention center was closer to my hotel room than some of the places in Orlando when you had to walk so distance. So talk about the side of Tampa and how you felt about that.
Oh, I loved it, and the weather was beautiful. I mean, it was cold that first night, but there was so much to do. Like you said, like it was, you could walk out the doors, and I didn't have to worry because I felt like in Austin that if you got out that you had to Uber or find something, but it was all right there together. And like you said, you could walk and find great restaurants. There was always something to do. You know, I loved just being in the rooms, like in most of them, if they faced the water side, just seeing the water and being,
Mm-hmm.
scenery around you. But I'm with you. The walking was so much more convenient. And my hotel was literally right across the street. So if I needed to run over between sessions and grab something or freshen up or change, it was right there, not having to worry about transportation. So yeah, I really enjoyed Tampa. I've told everybody I know that, Lannis and all them want us to go back. And I said, you got my vote, because Tampa was all what was really fun. I really enjoyed it.
Let me ask you this: is there any kind of pressure following Lauren, then who followed Josh Scott, who followed Doug Kilgore, who followed Holly Farnese,
Oh,
obviously all the way back to Bruce Whitehead? I mean, that's a Mount Rushmore of
like a
faces right
room,
there,
isn't it?
people.
There is. And Josh and I sat down. When I went to my first board meeting, he was there as well for something else. But we sat down and got to really talk. But you say all those names though, and I think what has been the most appreciated, because like you said, that is a very intimidating room when you start looking at who
Hmm.
it's not only the longest seat, I mean, but just Lauren and the impact that they've had and the things that they've done. And what they continue to do, the Josh Scott and all of them after they're done. So, but I think what's been so wonderful is that they are all just, I mean, I've heard from so many of them, anything I can do, if I can do anything to help you. And, let me share this with you. And anytime I've had a question, even if it's, cause I keep very weird hours, I'll tend to just wake up randomly and things will come to my mind and I'll shoot messages at odd times and they've all been wonderful. They might not answer then because no one else is up when I'm up, but they always get back and they always have been so patient and they've been so kind. And Lauren has answered the same question 5 times and we're gonna get it. We have a year and going through and getting to look at her notes and what she's doing, especially with committees and things that you never knew. I mean, because a lot of this job is what I've learned after the first board meetings, the things that I didn't know, I didn't know. I mean, you don't know a lot of what this encompasses, and they can tell you have to take minutes of the meeting and you have to do this, but once you're in there and to understand that, they still want you to be a very active participant and an active board member because you're a board member as well. So,
Right.
And again, learning from that, but they're all so great in the sense of I know that I have a support system that no matter, what happens or what questions I come across, they're going to be there to answer is also pretty cool, even though they are a very intimidating room for sure. So,
Perfect. Tabitha, what's the favorite part of your job?
man, I get to watch kids play sports for a living. That's what I tell people all the time, right? I mean, I get to support kids and probably, and I say it all the time too, is that think of all the kids who without sports in their life, we touch as in athletics probably more than anybody else in a school system. I mean, think of the impact. I cannot tell you who my third grade, science teacher was. Probably don't remember anything I learned from third grade science, but man, I can tell you who was on, any of the teams that I played for and the connections that you make and the relationships that you build. And I get to be a part of that every single day in my life and I get paid to do it. I mean, I get paid to support kids and support coaches that support kids. So I think that's so very cool. Getting to watch kids grow through athletics because I mean, I know that some of these kids that having tough conversations and having those conversations and they wouldn't be in school if it wasn't for sports and being able to support that and to help them and to guide them on those journeys and those coaches, that have those kids and that struggle with that and being a support system for them because I always say I want to be the AD that I wanted as a coach because I didn't always have that. Not and it's no not because I know some of the greatest ADs I know are also football coaches, but I had an old football coach. Couldn't tell you who my high school AD was because he was very rarely there. I mean, he was football coach, title, all the things, but it was more, you know, being able to be what I felt like I needed from an athletic director. And being able to be that for my coaches is very, very important. So, but I think that's, just being able to support kids and supporting coaches is probably my favorite part of the job.
Perfect. Let's finish up with a couple of questions, Tabitha. The first being this. I'm asking for your 2 suggestions for a brand new athletic administrator, and they need to follow Tabitha's suggestions in order to become a success. What would your 2 suggestions be?
Set boundaries early. Set them early and understand that it's okay to say no. Um, it's still, my husband still says that to me sometimes. He said, well, you can say no, right? And I really wish that I would have kind of established some harder boundaries earlier in my career. So being able to do that early, figure out what your non-negotiables are, communicate those and stick to them. And what I live by every day of my life is always do what you feel like's right for the kids. Do what's best for the kids and you'll be okay. Our job, the main purpose of an athletic administrator, I think, is to support kids. So if we always do right by the kids, then I feel like you'll be successful. And let that drive your decision making from day one. It's not about you, and you're going to have differing opinions from adults. But as long as at the end of the day you can look in the mirror and say I did what was best for these kids, then I think that's the most important thing you can do.
Perfect. We'll finish with this. Tabitha, what question should I have asked you that I failed to ask?
This was tough. I went back and forth, talked to a few people. I'm not gonna lie. I phoned a friend or five, and I think the only thing that I can think of that really kind of gives you a good picture of me is you know what do you hope your leadership legacy is when you retire or when you're done? And knowing that about me, and knowing that I just hope that, and I think it's funny because Dustin Smith said it. We had an early conversation from our first meeting, and he asked me why I did something, and I said, my mom always taught me to leave something nicer than you found it. So I think that at the end of the day, when I'm done, if you can say that my programs are more stable and more student centered, and my coaches feel supported, and I gave my athletes a place where they could grow and be and belong and be a part of something, then I've done my job. So, that's how I want to leave it. That's what I want to be remembered as an AD who did that, and I'll be happy.
Well said. On that note, that wraps up this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Again, our special guest today has been Tabitha Beard, Certified Master Athletic Administrator, the Co-Activities Director for the Oxford School District, and the Secretary in Training for the NIAAA. Yeah,
Secretary
there
elect.
you go.
There you go.
Secretary-elect. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, Tabitha.
Thank you for having me.
For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.